by the grace of God, on top of in economic terms, on top of the world, in terms of GDP growth, in terms of the size of the economy, and in terms of good governance, we should be top 5.
In Africa or in the world?
In the world. We will be top in Africa. So why would Africa not be top? It's the emerging continent. It's the emerging continent, and then, I mean, it will take some catching up to do for the US to lose that first position, despite China's growth and all that. But let's be there in the top 5, top 10. You cannot get there without the people enjoying it. For China to get to where it did, it had to liberalize some, policies, and it took these policies over the past decade took over 300 million people out of poverty. That is the greatest effort and achievement in our lifetimes. Now, to be part of that, you will need good governance. You will need, solid policies. You will need good resources. You will need everything working almost in perfect, sync. And it has to be like that for you to be there. So it's a case of getting it done at that level so that we can be part of top 10. Well, they taught us how to think like them, and at this time, for now, it is still the West that is in the forefront of economic development. They run all the international agencies. The head of the IMF must be from EU. The head of World Bank must be from America, and they determine what should work. If you do not follow their lead, you probably will not get. If you need aids or you need grants or you need directions as to how to grow, you probably will not get it done. What colonialism has done, whether Francophone, Portuguese, English, is that it allowed us to understand how they could think. We have started thinking like them up to an extent, but then awareness has come back. We now know that we also need to go back to the way we understand things are done. Culture is coming back to play a very strong role. I do not know of any country, especially in Africa, that does not want to reflect whatever it does, its own culture, in how it presents itself to the world. Colonialism is good. Taught us how to get into the new centuries and the recent centuries, and helped us to understand what the leaders of the world are doing now. Eventually, as emerging markets, I know you understand that out of the top 10 fastest growing economies in the world, Africa has about 7. Nigeria is top 2, top 3. Now, we are the emerging markets. Emerging markets become the developed markets. Developed markets eventually will go to lead the world, because we are growing faster, we have the resources that they don't have outside, and we will get there. By the time we are there, we do not have to now continue thinking. Like the colonized, we have to now explain to them, okay, when you blend what you have taught us with what we know, what we are used to, this is how it will come out and look, and this is the way we want to run it. Colonialism or not, there is always the human, attribute of hanging with your own, staying close to what you understand. What you don't understand, you are afraid of sometimes, and because you want to stay within that comfort zone of yours, you will always stay with what is closest to you. I believe that must have happened in what you have described. And if it wasn't colonialism, if it wasn't about splitting right down the line between the Francophones it would have been something close to tribalism. It will always happen. In Nigeria, the Northerners will always vote for what they think. The Southerners will say, okay, the Christian will hang out with those that are close to what they understand, and it will continue. It is human, and I don't think that's necessarily an issue with colonialism. They may all speak French together or speak English together, but it is because over time they've gotten close enough to understand themselves. there is the OAPI, there is the ADIPO. Everything is along the lines of you either speak French, or you are speaking English, or speaking Portuguese. So what do you expect when they come together as a union? They will still stay close. It shouldn't be like that, but that's human nature. Codeville is a business solution development company, and what we have, the services that we provide and the kind of product that we provide are locally designed and developed. We're using local talents because the challenges are and the landscape in Nigeria and essentially in West Africa are different from most other places in Africa and the rest of the world. So we had to develop all these, these ideas have to come from the fact that we were trying to solve some infrastructural or social challenges. And when we do that, because they don't exist outside, that area, they become international quality. And because technology does not have it doesn't allow you to have borders, any geographical borders really. It is on the web. You can use it anywhere. As I'm here, I know what is happening in my offices at home, and my services are going on. I have more than half of my staff in London with me now, and the work is going on. Now, why have we gone international to that extent? We have operations in Sierra Leone. It was challenging in terms of how to even start, but we got there eventually. We first have to start trusting ourselves as West African, as Africans in the first place. This phobia, and I understand it. Nigerians are very aggressive in business, as in everything. I mean, if you have visited maybe the rest of the countries along West Africa and maybe Central Africa, you notice that the way we do business in Nigeria is very aggressive, and this can scare a lot of local, businesses and entrepreneurs and even government. And that comes out most times when you go. And the idea is just these Nigerians have come to take over again. It shouldn't be, because we have come with technology in terms of Codeville to help improve systems. What Codeville does is to use technology, mobile, web, internet, to help improve the delivery of services to the end users, whether it be government or private sector. Sierra Leone has been a wonderful experience, despite the challenges that we had starting, and we are there. They've seen the effect of what we're able to do, and they're enjoying it. We're enjoying it, and that's okay. We hope we have offices in a few other countries, though not operations necessarily. Very soon, even if we do not have the government contracts to work with them, we will go in there with our private sector initiatives, and we'll start. Now, why would they need to want to deal with the UK and America? It's still the idea, the colonial mentality that is still residual in us. Anything coming from here has to be better than what we develop there. We face the challenge even locally in Nigeria as well. Our people need to believe in us. The Nigerian ID project, for example, I keep insisting. Why go Korea or France or anywhere? For me to handle that contract, you say, as my government, you say I must have a partner that is foreign. I have done database capture, transaction capture, database, administration. I have over 50 million records of different, statistics. Why should I not be able to handle it? I don't bother to pitch for it, because if I must come with a foreigner to do this, then you don't trust what I have. And we could have done it for a cheaper and a faster, much cheaper and faster than that. It does. So, colonialism, it has to be superior if coming from here, and it's not very nice, because even from here, it probably comes from China before it comes to us. So if China can bring it directly and it cannot compete with what I have locally, why do you think if it comes through London or the US, it will be better? It won't be. It won't be.
Do you think there's any chance of that? Well, when you're in Sierra Leone now, and so did you find it easy to deal with the government over there? And do you think it's something that could be replicated? Maybe that's a model that could be copied by other companies.
Yeah. Yeah. When what you do is so closely dependent on government authorization of government to do it in any country, you have to be very careful. You have to first of all separate politicians from civil servants, and then separate these two from businessmen. go in as a businessman because you have no business in their politics or their civil service. It's very critical. What we had our challenges even recently, but what you cannot take away, doesn't matter the color of my skin, my language I speak, if the results that I show are good enough for what I promised or better, you can't take away the quality. Now leave the rest of the politics of the civil service to the people. You will need them when you are trying to get the contract. You need to work with them. But once you start, stay out of their politics, do your job, be businessmen and women, and then I think you'll do well. It's an established mantra that competition is good. When I think about it in terms of the West, what the West worries about, I'm really not particularly bothered. But when I think of it in terms of the potential it holds for Africa, going forward, I tend to, worry a bit. Well, it might mean, to an extent, some level of economic colonization. They come in bearing gifts, almost free or seeming to be free, and then at the end of it all, before you know it, a lot of your economy has been taken over subtly, and you may not at that point be able to do anything about them within the codes of good business ethics and all that. China needs a lot to fuel its economy, and they do not have enough within the country. So they've come out all the way to South America, to Africa, to China, because they will not get this in the West. They also need now, knowing that the middle class is growing, things are no longer as cheap as it was when they were starting. They are plateauing. They are almost, at the same level as the West is. It's going to get more expensive. Housing, housing is already very expensive. Retail goods are already getting expensive. They will no longer be getting away with all these, patent abuses and trademark abuses that they were able to get away with. Now, people have to look more closely at the offerings from China in Africa going forward. It's an area that I'm seriously looking into, what it holds for Africa, and I think regarding the West, I'm not worried. I mean, it's good for them to have competition about how they come and do scramble and partition in Africa, but Africans need to be a bit more careful. You will realize that the kind of product that they come and, I will call it, dump into Africa, the Chinese come and dump in Africa, it's not the same kind of quality that they bring into the West. They will not dare. It's an area that we have to seriously look into. They come in bearing gifts. The gifts are nice. They've just built the biggest mosque in Nigeria or somewhere. They went and built the AU, structure for Africa for free. Everything is free until you realize that everything that is being taken out of all resources taken out of your system, actually going to fuel what is happening there. At the beginning, it's good for us, but it's not always going to be what we need. So at some point, we need to step back and look at it and say, maybe technology transfer is a good idea. Maybe ideas transfer is a good idea. We need to also start taking back some of these, things for ourselves, taking control of some of these, these areas for ourselves. But I don't think the West has a reason to mourn. It's just a reflection of what had happened in the past with the West. A lot of development in the West was through, to a large extent, in the West was through slave labor, taking resources out of Africa at no cost and using Africans to do this. Now, it's not the same thing that is happening now, but it's more economic and quieter and maybe neater. But it's eventually, if we are not careful, going to end up the same way. For me, instability is in Africa a major result of infrastructural challenges, social, challenges, and the fact that for a long time we did not, in most parts of Africa, have the right models of governance in a lot of countries. It has allowed a certain part, a small part, almost everywhere in each country to benefit too much from the resources available to the whole of the population, and people feel unhappy about this, and reactions have been sometimes violent. Where this has not happened, it is as a result of repression, and you now find people essentially move into that bracket, that very small fraction of the bracket of those who are gaining too much while the masses are suffering. But lately, to a large extent, democratization has come in to replace a lot of dictatorships, a lot of military governance, and that has changed not only the perception from outside Africa, but it also changed what is happening in-house. Nigeria is a great example for me. Since 1999, everything has changed, and that's because the moment we became a proper democracy again, despite all the challenges, all the shortcomings, it is still a far better system that we had in the past. It took a while for it to get to that deplorable state.
Yes, it did.
We hope that it will take a lot shorter the time to get it, but it's on its way. There are pockets of initiatives and efforts. Now, what has happened is that the constitution or the law surrounding who could actually generate and distribute power did not favor a quick development of this. States, for example, could not on their own generate and supply their own people. River State in Nigeria had enough to supply its people 24/7, but because the law said even if you have it, you must supply it to the national grid, they could not do much about it for a long time. I don't know, but it's changing now. Lagos State had efforts, with the unfortunate Enron situation, but that they have other initiatives they're making. Even federal government at its own level has commissioned different private individuals and entities to go into producing power for distribution. They have also decentralized the power grid. There is now a distribution company, there are generation company, so all this should come together in a few years, hopefully by the grace of God, to start improving things. But when power comes back, security issues become redundant, really. Manufacturing issues become redundant, because how can you even run a refinery effectively when you do not have stable power? So all this should come back to feed into the whole. Once power comes back to Nigeria, it becomes, with the size and the potential is there, it has to be the first in the whole of Africa, no longer the second or third.
And you're confident that will happen within the next 5 10
years? I believe so. I believe so. We are on the right track, because things are improving back home now. You are getting light more often than you don't, except maybe in the affluent area that they believe you can afford to have alternative power sources. But that is the way to go, and the results are coming in bit by bit. Eventually, if we retain the focus, we should be on the right. We should achieve what we want to achieve eventually. I will explain it this way. One of the papers I wrote for my I'm a student at the International School of Management in Paris. I'm a doctoral student in business administration, and one of the papers I had to write was how China had actually, remodeled itself, despite its business ethics being questionable, in quotes, using Western standards. I think democracy will have to be tinted with the flavor of the local environment. It's still under the general, auspices of, we are all democracies, and India is a democracy. It's been for a long time, probably the oldest after the US or something. And China will call itself a democratic, is a people's republic of, and that's essentially what democracy is all about. The people working for the people to enjoy. The same thing for North Korea. But the Western economies of the West will not necessarily agree with this. Zimbabwe, as you quoted, will have to see it as a democracy. I mean, they have elections, however flawed it may be. There are elections, and there are people who go to vote. We will always come up with different types in different economies because we are not the same people. Africa has the largest diaspora diversity in the world. Different people, different language, different. So we cannot all come from the same place and end up in the same place. Nigeria has its own flavor of democracy. It probably would not all be totally acceptable to them in the West or to them in the East, but it is our democracy, and we are learning and we are improving. Some of these established economies, it took them years and years and years of suppression of all sorts of inappropriate systems and influence for them to get to where they are now. And we will take our time, do what we need to do, design it our own way, and then make it work. Eventually, it will work. Well, the results are clear. Top growing economies of the world. 1 billion people, and Nigeria constitutes almost 16% of that, with 170 million population size. 7.1% growth, only behind two economies. China is now on 7 point something as well, so it's not much more different. And I think Indonesia, one of these is the Asian countries. Ghana is growing at this pace. Now oil is coming up. Nigeria 7.1% is mostly non-oil, and that is what is great about it. Ethiopia, despite its closed, the nature of its economy, is doing what it needs to do, growing the local market. Mozambique, Angola, all doing very well. We're happy with that. Now, what should we expect in the future? We have the resources, we have the human capital. We now are developing the skills. Add that to the resources that are available, natural resources are available. We are positioned to be not just the emerging continent, but to the leading continent. It's no longer Asia. They are growing, but you see, even China and all these guys are coming into Africa to come and find cheaper labor, cheaper resources, and probably try to use that because they are plateauing. They are plateauing. With the size of the population, Nigeria's GDP at almost $2,000. We moved from about $40 billion in 2000 to 400, almost 450. In 10 years, I believe we are on the right track. I believe we are going to achieve a lot, and it doesn't have to be about oil. It doesn't have to be about oil, and when that is, it means there is a lot of opportunity for growth in business outside oil. For small businesses, the middle class market is growing. It means the retail market is growing because the mass market, the lower class, will always be there. That is a great opportunity for ideas, mass market services and products, manufacturing. And in particular in Nigeria, once power sector is sorted out, watch out. I do not know. Let me be honest, I do not know. Each leader comes with his own, baggage and issues, pluses and minuses, a lot of minuses, I must say. But maybe what he's come up with the Mo Ibrahim, governance and leadership and governance index may start encouraging some of them to want to show up as one of the good ones on the list. To a large extent, corruption is a major issue in most African countries. The leaders have not been able to handle it effectively. I was amazed when some of the countries that are ranked as not so corrupt in the eyes of the West, when you go in there to try and do business, you find out it's just latent, it's just there. not so projected to the West, because they do not, they come with us, you must deal with us openly and all that. And whatever they want, they give them. But when you are dealing with each other as Africans, it's totally different. And I think at this time, the generation of leaders should change. I'm almost 50. At my age, I'm almost getting too old to be in such positions. I should be in an advisory position. There are younger men, younger women with nimbler minds, fresher minds, more energy, who will do very good jobs once we can, encourage them to move away from this exuberance of, handling power, handling a lot of resources. Old politicians should give way, because they've tried. It has not so far worked. There hasn't been any sub-Saharan spring yet. Maybe when that happens, if it happens, it will change a few of these situations. Codeville was established in 2005, January 2005, as a corporate business advisory firm, registered with SEC in Nigeria. And for 2 years, that's what we did. Like I said, competing and trying to, match the likes of KPMG, PwC, Accenture, and all that. And eventually, we diversified into what you call the designing and development of business solutions, automated business solutions for processes in Nigeria, because we realized that there is a huge gap, and that created opportunities for, the automation of a lot of the processes. A lot of things that we do in Nigeria are manual. They still remain so for now, but Codeville and a few other IT services companies are coming up to design systems in the area of payment gateways, designing and initiating a cashless society, internet-based, transactions, mobile-based, monitoring, and this kind of electronic platform for commerce that we do. So Codeville does all this in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. All we do are of international standard, because we've been certified by ISO twice, to be ISO certified in terms of what we do, our processes and our procedure, and our products and services. Now, we also try to make sure we balance the public sector, private sector, involvement in our business. As we have all these contracts in the area of motor vehicle documentation, NAFDAC and FRSC in Nigeria, we also have a lot of initiatives and services in the area of public sector, in area of education, in commerce, trading activities and all that. We have the most robust online trading platform in West Africa. It's called the Egole. The AutoReg platter of solutions actually gets to service anything that has to do with motor vehicle administration, what you call DVLA here, and it's the best in the world, because it's the only one that gets you to do this in 5 minutes anywhere in the world. So, and that is what they have exported to Sierra Leone. I'm hoping you'll be able to work with the UK, government to serve the people, because it still takes between 1 and 2 weeks now. So we do all this, hoping that we will be able to establish a landscape in Nigeria and in Africa for an economy that is not only petroleum based, oil and gas based, or agriculture based, but we'll be able to export technology as well. That is what Codeville is all. That is our focus. At the end of the day, we say on any of the things that we do on a daily basis, at some point on life, we will touch your life. You're either going to be buying your grocery, or you're buying your top up for your mobile phone on Egole shopping mall, or you'll be renewing your licenses, or you'll be working with the authorities in terms of buying drugs from the chemist, making sure that it's authentic and all that. At some point in life, our vision is to touch your life sometime.